All right, I think I got this working kind of. Mom life. All right, that was the diaper cream. You have no idea how many times I have tried to record this video. I'm not sure where I should look. It's not just because I'm 40 years old. I actually, prior to going on maternity leave, I was a director of a technology lab, so I have no excuse, but none of my stuff is syncing up, and I just didn't really want to invest in like a light ring and a selfie stick and a this and a that, but I'm like, anyone who's watching this wants me to do that, and I'm actually starting to really want to do this like on a whole new level. The reason being is it is a journey and it's a story that needs to be told. Not because I'm amazingly special or anything like that. Just because I'm so average, because I'm so, there's a million women like me out there. We're chubby and we blend in, we stick out, but mostly we blend in, and I think people think, oh, wouldn't you have your food and weight issues sorted by the time you hit your 40s? And eating disorders seem to be the realm of younger ladies, and the way that I'd like to recover is the way that is touted effective and safe and societally accepted for someone with anorexia and maybe even bulimia. But even then, there's a concern about letting those bulimic gals just eat. That's not me saying that. That's society. And so, we need to have a conversation about this, that there is a whole generation of women raising the next generation of women who we're still chronically dieting. We're still stuck in this diet mentality. We can't get out. And we need to heal ourselves. I need to heal myself. There's a lot of people who are just so similar to me. So I'm going to tell you my story. I am going to give you 2 caveats to that. The first one being that I have small children and they like to run into rooms screaming. Well, the toddler does. The 6-month-old doesn't. She's too small. And they like to be naked when they do that. So if I have to suddenly stop, that's why. The second caveat, or is really actually a trigger warning, I do include in things like weight, behaviors, numbers, things like that. I've always found it very helpful in my recovery, and I think that we're so used to seeing, the after school special. Actually, my generation is used to that. I don't think they do after school specials anymore. We're so used to seeing like one kind of eating disorder and one description and one version of it, just, similarly to the way that we're used to seeing one kind of beauty, that it's helpful to be able to take someone else's behaviors and numbers and data and compare it to yours, in my opinion. So I apologize if you find this at all triggering. So I've lived a life, and I'm going to have a lot of history in here, and I'm going to work my way backwards, but I am probably going to, at different times, skip around my history and go back and forth, in and out. And so I know that it would be easier if I approach this in a very methodical, chronological way. But I'm not. Sorry. It's just like, I'm basically just like, I'm having a coffee conversation with you, and I'm just getting it all off my chest in as quickly as I can, I guess. So we're going to start. This is part 1 of who knows how many parts. And we're going to start in the year 2015. 2015, it was a very good year. So, what was I doing in 2015? In 2015, that was the first time that I got pregnant with my son. At that point, in terms of my food, weight, and body image obsession, I was about 200 pounds. And I'll insert a picture so you can see what 200 pounds looks like on me. And I was coming off of a period of sort of like the first step of recovery from a really long restrictive period. So, but I wasn't recovering like consciously, if you know what I mean. Like I was just kind of like focused on other things, was tired of restricting, and so was just kind of doing restriction light, if you want to call it that. So for me, restriction light looks like, and has almost always looked like, not eating during the day and then binging at night, or if I do eat, having what I call in my mind my fake prop food, my theater food, whatever. So these really like minuscule, like I would get these little things that, I'm not even kidding you, that are made for salad dressing, Tupperware that's made for salad dressing, and put my lentil salad in that and then be like, why am I binging at night? Well, maybe because you ate a thumbnail size of fucking salad, okay, Brooke? Like, that's why you're binging at night. That is a reaction to starvation. Anywhoozle, 200 pounds, and that pregnancy, I had my, well, not my first brush, but I'll get to that later. I had a brush with hyperemisis gravadarium. Hyperemisis gravadarium, or HG for short, is extreme nausea and vomiting in pregnancy. So basically, there's morning sickness, and like, think about morning sickness as a spectrum. So here you have, you know, a little bit of morning sickness, and oh, my tummy hurts, I'm gonna have some crackers, and oh, I feel better, okay, great, and it went away after 6 weeks. Then you have that poor gal who, like, you know, she comes and goes throughout the day, she feels crappy, but it's gone after the first trimester. This other gal here, she's just sick all the time, she throws up a couple times a day, but it goes away after 2, 3, 4 weeks, and she's still able to function. And then all the way, like, keep going over here, is hyperemesis gravidarium. Hyperemesis gravidarium is, well, I'll make a separate video on this because there's so many weird intersections and so many crazy things that happen. And my HG girls will probably appreciate that because a lot of us talked about how it re-triggered old eating disorders. But anyway, in terms of like, well, what does that feel like? Imagine your worst hangover, like you drank rum and vodka and gin and wine and beer and some sort of disgusting spritzer, lots of it, like basically like your first time you got really fucked up, right? And that hangover the next day where you couldn't even move without wanting to vomit and you didn't get up until 5 o'clock and even then you felt like you were 8 billion years old, that's how you lived the whole time with HG. So in my case, for my first pregnancy, I was not vomiting. I just had the nausea. The nausea was so bad, though, it was completely debilitating. But I only had it till about 18 weeks. Following that, I was able to have, in terms of food, weight, and body image, a healthy pregnancy. I just let myself eat intuitively. And I was able to do it at that point because whenever, as us eating disorder people do, when I'm doing something for somebody else, so easy. And in that case, I was doing it for the little human that I was growing inside. So of course I was going to make sure that he had the absolute best nutrition that I could provide for him. And I was going to make sure that I got all of those nutrients in there and take the best care of him I could, which meant that I was just eating intuitively, and it was not a restrictive sort of thing. It was not from a place of, not loving myself. It was a place of extreme love, and I gained 43 pounds. And side note, I think it's interesting. So I started at 200 pounds and my doctors never gave me any grief in that pregnancy about losing, gaining, whatever. They didn't tell me, oh, you know, the recommended amount is 15 to 20 pounds. And what I always find really funny about that is, like, they say to anyone over 200 pounds or whatever, you can only gain 15 to 20 pounds. Your body does not know that you are in a fake BMI category that, you know, is just like some guy made up in the 1940s for his insurance charts, and says... and says to itself, oh, my BMI is 33, I can only gain 15 to 20 pounds. Your body knows it's pregnant, and it's going to do what it has to do to make sure that you have a healthy pregnancy and that you put on fat. And it doesn't go like, oh, you're a size 12, you only need this amount of fat. It goes, you're pregnant, I'm going to put some fat on you. It doesn't, you know, like, it doesn't have all of these fake categories. So it's interesting. 43 pounds. And there's a reason why I'm going off on this tangent. There really is, I promise. So lost most of it within, you know how that is. It's all mostly fluids and placenta and blood volume. It's not really real fat, except for the fat stores that go onto your hips, your butt, your tummy, wherever you tend to put fat on. And that's there so that you can feed your baby after pregnancy. It's just a physiological thing. So, in my case, my body definitely did change. My hips widened and my boobs got bigger again. But, yeah, So 43 pounds. Then I stayed at a size 214 pounds. I couldn't lose that 14 pounds. I was breastfeeding at the time and having big problems with my supply, so I said to myself, I'll just focus on being healthy, and in the back of my mind I was like, and when it's safe to go on a big crazy diet, I will. And lo and behold, because it was 2016, 2017, what did I do? Oh yes, keto, as one does in 2016, 2017. It all started with bulletproof coffee because I was tired. And once I tasted the bulletproof coffee and kind of lived the bulletproof lifestyle, I was like, oh, well, if this is associated with keto and this is amazing, imagine what keto can do for me. What keto did for me was that I was able to get back down to 204 pounds, but only by eating in the most bizarre, unhealthy. The whole time I was doing it, like, I'm a smart woman and I actually have a lot of information about nutrition and stuff, but sometimes for me, which is I think so true of all of us with eating disorders, the head and the heart are so disconnected. So the head's like, this is dumb, Brooke. Like, you have cut out an entire food group and you're eating something called fat bombs. And after a while, everything just tastes like fat. Like, this isn't, do you think you're really going to be able to live the rest of your life like this? And yes, I was eating like my favorite greens and putting butter on them and having avocado and everything, but the whole diet is just like super repetitive and boring, and everything starts to taste like a fat bomb. Like, everything started to taste like a fat bomb to me. So, couldn't really stick with it, didn't want to really stick with it, went on with back to my disordered behavior. Let's call it like disordered light, or like average diet lady in her 40s. Like, that's pretty much what I was doing. Then I get pregnant again, and I get pregnant with number 2, and I know that I'm pregnant right away because, not because of a pregnancy test, but because I was standing by my kitchen sink, I took a sip of some tea, and I got hit by a wave of nausea that was like, it was like a tsunami, and it was slow motion too. It was like rolling up. Okay, great. I have HG again, and I'm pregnant. And I was right. The second time around with HG was way worse than the first. And statistically speaking, if you have HG in your first pregnancy, you are 83% more likely to have it in subsequent pregnancies, and each time it gets worse. That's not always true, you know, like there's always outliers and blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, that's how that goes. So from the get-go, I was really, really, really sick. Vomiting 40 plus times a day. My pelvic floor is and was shot, because that action of it all comes from your pelvic floor. So not only are you so nauseous that you can't even stand or function or watch television, because movement on a television screen gets you vomiting, and every time you vomit, you urinate all over yourself, because after your first trimester of vomiting 40 times a day, your pelvic floor shot. The medications, all of them just really didn't work for me, except for steroids right towards the end. But even then, it wasn't like a complete cessation. It was just, you know, it was getting me through to the point where I would give birth. I was in and out of the hospital. HG is a really serious and can be a very life-threatening condition during pregnancy, and there's a lot of research and back and forth, and I'll go into it. I'll do a separate video about this, but basically it really triggered all of my old stuff to kind of come back up at a really high level. My old eating disorder behaviors, I mean. So I finally give birth, and it was like, ah! And I literally, everyone talks about this, the nausea just goes away. I was actually even vomiting uncontrollably during my C-section. It was horrible. So the nausea goes away, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna be able to eat. This is gonna be amazing. And the only thing I wanted a sandwich, and I wanted a tuna fish sandwich so badly. And I could not have it, because after so long of vomiting so much, my stomach had tons of damage. So for the first 4.5 months, I had to be on a liquid diet. And I was very conflicted during that time because, as it turned out, I had neither gained nor lost weight, or rather, I should say, appeared to. But in fact, I had lost 40 pounds, 37 pounds, but like, you know, give or take, that's pretty much 40 pounds. So there I am, 40 pounds less, after having gone through this weird, crazy food body image journey pregnancy. And then everyone's congratulating me, and it's like, I almost fucking died. Like, I don't care that I'm 40 pounds less, and I'm only able to drink liquids. I'm nursing a child. I have a 3-year-old that I'm running after. I feel like shit. I'm completely malnourished. I'm in a place of complete deficiency. And you are telling me that it's awesome that I lost all that weight and that I look great. I don't look great. I look terrible. And yeah. So the minute I was able to eat solids again, I gained all of that weight back in less than a month. And it wasn't like I was, you know, like raw. I was very, very hungry, but it wasn't like I went to Walmart and just like went into the snack aisle and was like whoosh, 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 onto my shopping cart. I was just eating like normal stuff, like sandwiches and salads and salad dressing and avocado toast and eggs and stuff like that. My portion sizes were a lot bigger than usual, but I had this extreme hunger, and I knew that when someone recovers from anorexia, I'll go into why I know all of this at some point, the refeeding process has to occur, and that the longer that person restricted, the more extreme that refeeding process will have to be. And depending on where you go for your treatment, they can be very conservative with the refeeding process or a little bit more extreme. Having worked in that industry for a very long time, what I tended to see was that the gals who really went quote unquote all in had the best and longest recovery. It was the rockiest, the biggest amount of work at the beginning, but it had the best long-term results. And the reason why I think that happened is because it tackled the emotional and physical repair in a big dramatic way right from the get-go. And it was looking at the idea of a physical restoration and basically saying, you can't heal this until all of this is healed. And I think that that's why it yielded such good results. One of the things that I've always been annoyed about in the eating disorder treatment world was that that sort of treatment was available to anorexic gals, sometimes bulimics, as I was saying before, and that us binge eaters, we were basically told like, yeah, so your treatment is to figure out why you eat emotionally, because it's all you. It's not, you know, a reaction against restriction and the constant restriction and the constant bias that you've internalized, and to love yourself enough to diet with love. That's not effective. If that fucking worked, everyone would be a size 2 and no one would be having this conversation. It doesn't work. If you actually probe around and look at the numbers for recovery, especially, well, for binge eating specifically, it's not, you know, like in using that model of recovery, it's not recovery, and no one was recovering, no one was getting better, and no one was talking about it. And in fact, there was a blame the victim mentality, because nobody likes an eating disorder patient that kind of presses on the reality that you're not making them any better, and they come out as fat as they came in, and now they have this new diet that you put them on. And so, you know, when someone irritates you and you lash out at them, or you don't like them or whatever, and you blame them in your mind for making you feel that way towards them. That's basically how the eating disorder world treated binge eaters. And I was always like, why can't we eat? Why are we being told that we have to restrict? And same thing, very similar for the bulimic gals, although they got a little more leeway. Not enough. And not to say that recovery is perfect for gals in the anorexic category. And in fact, let's be real here, we all hop around on the spectrum. I certainly did. So having said all of that, why aren't binge eaters encouraged to just like go all in? And you could say, oh, well, in some places or even like books and things like that, they are, but it always turns into the hunger fullness diet. And if you were trying to get actual treatment, trust me, it's a hunger fullness diet. So I decided when I was sick with HG that I was going to deal with all of this crazy fucking eating shit and stop and use the method of recovery that I had seen had the best results. And one of my totems that made this all kind of line up and make sense and make it safe for me to follow my gut, which I'm terrible at doing and then always regret, is that in pregnancy number 1, I gained 43 pounds without my eating disorder being activated in any way. Pregnancy number 2, 37 pounds to sustain that pregnancy. So again, about 40 pounds to sustain both pregnancies if and when the body is just doing its thing. That tells me that my body is smarter than me, that if left to its own devices, it can figure out what it needs and it can do it in a reliable, safe, holistic way, that I don't have to be afraid of becoming some human garbage can and just never stopping eating. And I also know it's possible because in my childhood, I had large periods of time, not until late in my teens or mid-teens, did I start to become it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy of thinking of myself, because I have always thought of myself as this bottomless pit, this human garbage can, who just can't shut herself off. But I used to not have that thought, and I used to be able to eat and stop and enjoy a wide variety of foods. So if I did it then, and if my body knows how to carry a pregnancy and does the same thing both times, and if all of these, there were other little signals from the universe of all of these things being equal and being able to see all of that in the big picture, why couldn't I recover from my eating disorder by feeding that extreme hunger after HG and knowing that my body was completely depleted? So I had a choice at that moment. I could restrict and try to stay at a size 10, or I could take this opportunity to deal with this for once in my life, listen to my intuition, be brave, come from a place of love, and look at this whole big history, just like you have, all of us have a history, and look at it and finally have the bravery to listen to my intuition, listen to my heart, listen to my soul, because I'm so done with diets, and just eat. And so that is part 1 of my story. Thank you.